was truly amazing experience, and I just wanted that. Um, I remember hearing at some point, "It is not your time,"
Mm.
and I remember watching the accident. So I'm above the car now, floating. I'm looking down. I'm seeing my body. Um, they still can't get me out. They've used the jaws of life. They've now cut the roof off the car, um, and they put a board under my leg and under my legs to try to lift me out through the top of the car. Um, and at that point, I remember coming back into my physical body, and my left femur was broken. And I remember feeling the jolt of this excruciating pain.
Welcome to the Light the Day podcast, where we explore spiritually transformative experiences. Today, I'm thrilled to have on the show Kimberly May. Hi, Kimberly.
Hi, Julie. How you
I
doing?
Good, good. I'm so excited to have you here. We just recently met. I think it was about 2 weeks ago at an
Mm-hmm.
event,
Mm-hmm.
with another near-death experiencer. And you shared just a tiny bit, just the tiniest bit about your own experience. And so I was thrilled when you said yes to sharing your story here. So before we get started, will you share just a little bit about yourself and then we'll go into your story?
Sure, I'd love to. Thanks. I work in an integrative health center. I am a functional nutrition counselor. I do Reiki sessions with people, life and wellness coaching, a lot of things in the stress management realm. I do something called havening technique, which is designed to help release traumas from the body. So I combine a lot of different things to help people to release whatever might be holding them back so that they can fully step into who they really truly are as an infinite being, to be freed up, to be self expressed, and be well. Um, so, yeah.
That's amazing. That sounds
Mhm.
like really interesting, important work.
Mhm. I enjoy it. It's my passion.
Yeah. Well, and I know that your experience happened in 1991. So take us back to before that. What was life like? Was your
Hmm.
spiritual belief system, if any? What was that like before this experience?
Yeah, good question. I grew up in a conservative church. Well, I loved going to church, but it was very traditional. And I was a Sunday school teacher, and started probably around 19 searching. It didn't really fit for me exactly. So I started looking for answers, looking for a more expansive view. Um, After my NDE, it really did change everything I believed. It opened up me to see that we are infinite beings, and that um, a lot of what I believed shifted, and I really couldn't even explain it. But I was working in the corporate world, had a job as a headhunter, doing all the things you're doing in your 20s. I had just been married 1 month when I had the car accident that I experienced, the NDE. But I had was on that path. My husband and I both had good jobs. We were doing all the things that it looks like you're supposed to be doing to be successful, to get the good house, get all the good benefits, all doing all the right things. I was partying a lot, having fun, just all about that, the outside things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so to be married 1 month, that day, the day of the car accident, I had just found a new church, Unity Church. I loved it and felt very much like this fits the way I believe expansively, that we're all one and connected, and loved the service. I left there, went home to get my husband. We were going down to the river to meet my sister and her boyfriend at the time to go out for a lovely day on the river. And my husband and I were chatting about the day. And then all of a sudden I said, "Was that our turn?" And we turned left really quickly in a curve, and a red Corvette was flying at me. I could see it coming towards me very quickly. It's probably going about 65 miles an hour.
Wow.
And I said, "God, help me now." Now there was an explosion. I remember it just felt like a million pieces. We rolled down into a ravine, and I was trapped in the car. Um,
Mm.
so what I felt though when I said, "God help me," is it felt like God picked me up and just took me in to this infinite place of love, peace, bliss, joy. And I kept going towards that feeling, which was wonderful. And I wanted more of that.
Mhm.
That oneness, that expansiveness, that connectedness to all things was truly amazing experience. And I just wanted that. Um, I remember hearing at some point, "It is not your time."
Mhm.
And I remember watching the accident. So I'm above the car now, floating. I'm looking down, I'm seeing my body. Um, they still can't get me out. They've used the jaws of life. They've now cut the roof off the car. Um, and they put a board under my leg and under my legs to try to lift me out through the top of the car. And at that point, I remember coming back into my physical body, and my left femur was broken. And I remember feeling the jolt of this excruciating pain.
Wow.
So my right arm was broken in several places, my elbow, my left leg. So they managed to get me in a helicopter. I remember singing hymns. I couldn't believe I was back. I looked at the car. It was like, I don't know how I came out of there. People on the scene of the accident said there's no way that anybody came out of that car alive because the door, passenger door, was all the way to the console. It was just completely
Wow.
mangled car. And the console had come up on me and the door. So somehow I was just pretzeled in there. Um, and anyway, it was an amazing feeling when all of a sudden I was back, yet scared and terrified at the same time of what is happening to my physical body. But somehow I was also feeling a blissful feeling as well. And I remember being in the hospital. The chaplain came to see me, and he went out to tell my family. Now, the circulating story, because my sister had been waiting at the boat dock for me and my husband to arrive, was the girl in the car accident died.
Mhm.
So when the chaplain went out to talk to her and my family, they thought that's what they were coming to say. But he was like, "No, she's here. She's alive and well." I couldn't believe it. And I remember people saying, "I'm praying for you." And I would say, "I can feel it." And I could literally feel these prayers. Like I felt so different in my body, um, and feeling the prayers of people. It's hard to explain how you could feel that, but I could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not the first person to talk about that. A lot of people that have these experiences actually feel the prayers, or they experience the prayers in different ways. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's um, really an important thing for all of us to remember, is that
Mm-hmm.
prayers are influential, and so that's a beautiful thing. Now, I just want to ask a quick question about, so you were in the car by yourself at the time? You were on your way to pick up your husband, or he was in the car with
No,
you?
he was driving. So
Okay, he was driving.
he's in the driver's seat. I'm in the passenger seat. Now he got knocked out. He hit his head. He was knocked out. But they brought him, he was conscious. through this
Okay.
process. They did take him to the hospital with me, and we were both examined, and he was there at least a day or two, I remember, because we were in separate rooms. So here we are, newlyweds,
Yeah.
and we want to be together. And we were talking on the phone, we couldn't believe we had made it through that,
No
but then
kidding.
he was released. They kept me there for 2 weeks. It was an emergency hospital where there were, believe it or not, people who were worse than me. So there had been a rodeo accident, and there was a guy whose legs were severed,
Oh,
and there were
wow.
some burn patients. And I remember they would prep me for surgery, and they would say, okay, today we're going to fix your femur. And I remember lying in this waiting room with these burn patients who were burned over their whole bodies. And I was lying there praying. Um, and they came in and said, you're not going to be able to have your surgery today because these people were more critical than I was. Um, and that went on I was there 2 weeks waiting to get the surgery on my leg to put a
Yeah.
rod in it. So that's when I would say that feeling the prayers, but feeling like everything was going to be okay somehow, and knowing it would be. Um, but also being the trauma of all those people, being around them, I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
And praying for them and with them, because I was like, somehow, I really came away from that experience knowing we're not our bodies. And yet to see these people around me going through what they were going through, it was like I could really feel that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have another question about that moment when you were lifted out of your body, when you went to that position where you're watching the
Yeah.
accident. Did you did you experience the accident and then feel yourself lifted out of it, or did you feel yourself lifted out before the accident occurred?
Good question. I just remember seeing the car in the corner of my eye. I see a red Corvette coming, and I screamed, God help me, as I knew it was going to be bad. I mean,
Hmm.
as fast as it was coming. And I did feel an explosion, and I did feel like um, the impact. And then I immediately felt like I was lift. The best way I can explain it is I felt like God put me in his hands and just started lifting me out of that scenario up
Yeah.
to that blissful, beautiful place. I really think the asking was a big piece. It was like, help me now.
Mm.
And I remember saying that and then feeling that and wanting to go further into that and not wanting to come back. And to this day, I have to honestly say that it has been hard to stay in my physical body. I really struggled with that for so long. At 27, not that it was survivor's guilt, but it was like, well, why did I come back? What am I supposed to do? I should have died. I didn't die. Now what? How do I make sense? Nothing fit anymore. My job felt meaningless. Ever all the activities I had done before that didn't feel meaningful anymore. Everything felt like it didn't fit, and I kept wanting to go back to that expansive feeling of love, joy, bliss, connectedness. I was seeking that and trying to get back to that. And that's really what I wanted. And so learning to stay in my body, be grounded, heal it, and also experience the expansiveness at the same time has been my quest. Real.
Yeah. So when you came back into your body and taken to the hospital and so forth, did you remember your experience immediately? Because you did share that, like, when you came back, because you're taking us through this very chaotic scene, right, with this car
Mm-hmm.
accident and them having to um emergency measures to get you out of the car
Mm-hmm.
even, and yet you felt this peace and you felt this, like, this piece that's beyond understanding
Hmm.
in those circumstances. So I'm just curious, did you know where that was coming from at that point? Did you remember being taken out of your body? How did that
Yeah, I did
recognition?
remember it.
Hmm.
And I remember trying to talk to my doctor about it.
Mm,
So I go, to see my doctor, my orthopedic doctor, and I'm trying to sort it out. I'm trying to make sense of it. I'm like, okay, we're going to have these follow-up appointments. So I'm going to ask my doctor, right? He's the authority. So I start telling him about it. And he says, oh, no, you were in shock. That didn't happen. Um, so I start trying to explain to him also some of the things I was doing because I met a person who offered healing energy work through Reiki to help me with the pain in my body. And I was telling him about that. He looked at my x ray and he said, you're really healing quickly. How do you explain this? And I told him what I was doing. And I was also visualizing my body healing. A lot of this I was newly learning. Um, and he said, I don't know about any of that. I think you were in shock. And I remember going away from that thinking, okay, this is something I shouldn't talk about. This is
mhm.
weird. This is out there. I know I had this experience. I know it changed me. It took away my fear. So I was like, I should have died. I didn't die. So I really was grappling with, well, should I even tell people about this? Because my doctor's telling me that it didn't really happen. But I knew I was a completely different person. So it took me a while. I had gone to different practitioners who one was a craniosacral practitioner because I was in pain, and she said, "You are not in your body." She said, "I'm working on you. I can feel the pain, and when you get in pain, you leave." And I was like, "How did she know that I do this?"
Were you
And
conscious of that, or was that just something that was happening unconsciously?
that's a good question. I think at times I was aware, and I think maybe other times I wasn't aware that I was doing this.
Hmm.
And then I had another person I went to for healing work who said the same thing. And so I went to another physician, and he was a little more integrative, open minded. And he asked me this question. It was a very important question. He said, do you want to be here? And I said, that's a good question. I said, I really struggle with that. I part of me wants to go back to that expansiveness, that love, that angelic divine realm. Here it is painful. I'm struggling with the physical body. I'm struggling with what's going on in the world. And he said, well, he said, I don't think you integrated back in well. And
Mm,
he said, you've got to work with being grounded and you need to choose. And even that day when we were at the talk with the other near death experience person, and he talked about his struggle and choosing, and I started to cry because I still, that part of me still remembers, and every time I think about it, I think I feel that remembrance. I feel the choice. I feel that I want to cry. But what I came away with that day, and that was very important, was that I did choose. I did choose to come back, and that I choose moment by moment that it can be heaven on earth here. That I chose to share my story, to give hope to other people. And when I really struggled with why did I come back, um, and someone helped me with that eventually to see that all I had to do was share my story. Um, and so I really know that that's what it's about, just sharing. And
yeah,
it's not some big thing. It's just sharing from the heart.
yeah.
Yeah.
You describe being a different person after this
Uh-huh.
happened. Can you share with us what that looked like as far as, how you felt different? I imagine that, you were young, you just gotten married. I imagine
Mhm.
that before this happened, your life felt pretty satisfactory
Yeah.
in many ways.
Yeah, from the outside looking in, it was like you had, like I said, all the things, the trappings.
Yeah.
But then when those were not satisfying to me, so I started meditating more, writing more, spending more time in meditation, solitude, um, reconnecting to that highest part of me that remembered the field of the infinite love, um, to really start to question, well, what is this work I'm doing? Why am I doing this work? So I used to do this process where you, with the automatic writing, where you write with your non-dominant hand, and I would ask the question, well, what am I here to do? Um, and then I would write. Um, and one of those, not too long ago, I came across being stuck in an airport, and I found where I'd written what I really wanted to do when I was still in my corporate job, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And what I wrote about is what I do today. But I didn't even know what those things were called then. I mean,
Wow.
I didn't really know a lot of those things even existed. But I will say, even in my corporate work, like there were two men that I worked with, both who had lost their wives tragically, and they found me at work, and they would come and talk to me, and they would tell me, they're grieving, and they would talk to me about how hard it was, and I would help them. Um, One of my coworkers would hear me on the phone. By this time, I've left Headhunter, and I'm a marketing manager for a fast food company. And she said, I hear you on the phone, and when you finish people's marketing plans, it's like you go into this other realm and you're doing something else with people. And she said, but when you do that, you seem really happy. And what I was doing is people would start to tell me, I was coaching people. They would say, well, this isn't working, and I lost my wife, or this is happening and I'm suffering. And she said, nobody else around here does that. But I hear you doing this. And I said, yeah, I really like that part. After I finish the marketing plan, I get into the life plan. And so I would imagine in my mind, well, what if I could be doing that all the time? So a friend of mine invited me to go to this transformational workshop, and it was a 3-day workshop. And I went, and it was all about lining your life up with who you really are. And after the accident, I knew that I had to be who I really was, to be my authentic self. And it was so important to me that I had found this CD cover of this older woman who's probably my age now. And she looked real and happy and authentic and cool, and I put it on my bulletin board, and I was like, I'm going to be her. I'm going to line my life up with what matters to me. One day, this is what I'm going to do. So that automatic writing, and I'll read you, this is in this book collaborative I did called Awakening Stories, which is on my website.
Okay.
And these are
Awakening
all
stories. Okay.
awakening stories. These are all people who had spiritual awakenings as a collaborative. And so my story is in there, my NDE. And this is one entry that I wrote when I was doing automatic writing, where I'd get quiet and I ask, what am I here to do? So this was what I wrote. Thank you, God, for placing me in the right place to use my skills. I know you are guiding me to my divine purpose. And I wrote this job description for myself, using Reiki and other tools to help others and myself to release illness and past problems. Use my healing abilities combined with art to inspire people to let go of the past. Share my story through motivational speaking. My purpose is to help others to see the divine in themselves and others, to be an example, a healer, an artist, a teacher, a motivational public speaker. Please help me to use my voice to lift others up in love, hope, and promise. to bring out the best in others. So I remember writing that and putting that on the bulletin board with the picture of the woman that I wanted to be. And then I would do things like, make vision boards, read, cut out things, read things, and just keep seeing that I could do that ultimately.
Mm.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you to transition from corporate into this more holistic work that you do today or something similar?
Yeah, good question. So I left my corporate job in 99. So I had the accident in 91. So it took a little while. In the meantime, I had started taking classes in holistic health, uh, lining up my life with finding meditation groups, going to yoga, going to different groups that I felt helped me to express more of who I was. And then in 2000, I took a job. Well, I wanted to leave the corporate world, and I was on that story about I went to that transformational 3-day workshop and I created the possibility of being courageous. And that Monday, I went back to my office and I wrote up my manifesto resignation letter. I typed it up, and I said, I want to be my authentic self. I want to make a difference in the world. I want to help people. And I remember writing it and thinking, they're going to think I'm crazy because I really said who I was and what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then I turned it in and then I left. And I
Oh,
said, okay, God, this is it. I'm going to line up my life and I'm going to do what I've been writing about. And um, while I was healing, I would go to this integrative health clinic and spa that was on 1,300 acres in Kentucky with a horse farm. And it was really my dream job. And I would visualize when I was in the corporate world that I worked there. And I would even call there and ask um, for the marketing department. And they would put me through to this lady, and she would say, I am the marketing department and we don't need anybody. But I would persist. So one day I just, after this, that I resigned and wrote my letter and all that, I just went there and I didn't have an appointment, but I just showed up at the integrative clinic and I started talking to actually the lady that was the manager there. And I said, I would like to do energy work here. I told her what I wanted to do. She said, well, we have plenty of people that do that. What else can you do? And I said, well, I've been doing corporate marketing. And she said, we need that.
oh, interesting.
So she helped me, and I was able to come on as their marketing manager. But it wasn't long after I was there in that position that they eliminated that job, and then I became a practitioner in that integrative clinic, and worked there doing literally living my dream exactly the way that I saw it for about 6 years, getting to give talks on holistic health, being able to help people with grief, trained in heart math, and spent a lot of time helping people with that and doing all the things that I saw myself doing until, ironically, I was offered a free coaching session. And I said, what I really wanted was to go out on my own and have my own business.
Mm.
And I remember the person who was coaching me I said, well, in 2007, this is what I want. And she said, what if there was no time and there was no 2007? What if you could have it now? And I said, well, okay, well, we'll play with that. She said, what would that look like? And I said, I'd have to release my fear of putting myself out there, and that I would not have a salary or benefits or whatever. And so I kid you not, the next week we had a corporate meeting and they said they were shutting the company down
Wow.
and that they were closing the integrative spa and clinic. And I was kind of like, okay. I almost wanted to take it back because I was like, okay, now you got what you asked for. Now you're
Yeah.
going to have to do it.
Yeah. What did that process look like for you?
Well, I remember my husband saying you need to write a business plan and you need to lay out how you're going to do this. And of course, I already had some clients and some people that I was working with. And, something I say every day, Julie, is Holy Spirit, show me the way to serve you greater today. Help me see things through your eyes. And I truly trust it's an abundant universe and everything we need is there, that we're here to create, co create with the creator. And I can see where I was creating all of this. Um, now I can look back and see how all of it was lining up perfectly. Even the
Yeah.
car accident, it was a cosmic 2x4 up the head to say, change what you're doing, and we're going to redirect you.
Yeah.
uh, and I believe I chose it to wake up and to see life differently, way beyond what it looks like in the physical realm. So I just trusted that everything was in divine order, and that if I worked with the creator each day, that the clients would come, the opportunities would be there, that I needed to speak and share my story and just trust. And, that was 2007, and I have been doing that since.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. I want to go back just a little bit because you were newly married when this happened, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden this new Kimberly shows up. Like, how did
Mhm.
that affect your new marriage, your relationships in general? What did that look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think some friends did fall away, some activities did fall away. I remember we were really big on tailgating. We had an RV and going to games and doing things. And I just remember some of that just not feeling like I still really wanted to do all of those things. My husband had to readjust to me and the differences. Luckily, he loved me enough, and probably it altered him too, that
For sure.
he he said, "Well, I kind of remember when I met you. I had a good friend at school who was in medical school, and he had invited me to learn transcendental meditation with him. And I didn't know what it was, but I went because he said there was going to be a free meal. And, you as a college student, you're like, oh, free food, I'll go. so, so I went, and I was lovely meditation, lovely people, and they had this fabulous Indian buffet afterwards. And I don't even think I'd ever had Indian food. So absolutely loved it. And they said, well, come back, we'll teach you TM. And I said, well, what does this look like? And they said, well, ultimately, you pay X amount of dollars. And I think it was $2,000. And I said, I don't even have $2. And they said, it's okay. You can still come back. So that really helped me, um, because I learned how to still my mind for 20 minutes a day. And to this day, I can do what I call go in the in between very easily and just turn off my mind to connect to the highest part of me and still myself. So that was prior to the accident. But the reason I brought that up is my husband said, I knew that you were different because you did that practice. You were always into those spiritual books and things. So it just became more pronounced. Um, the divine order of all of it, you can see looking back how all of it was taking you where you were going. Um, but it was still a struggle in some ways for us. I remember, being in a wheelchair after the accident, and I couldn't use my right arm to like do my hair, do my makeup, and my husband was trying to do everything for me. And I just remember that really being a challenge, like he's trying to fix me up to go places and do things. Also was really able to experience what that's like for people, someone in a wheelchair. I remember thinking, here I am, 27, vibrant. I still thought I was a very healthy person. And people would give me this sympathy look. like, oh, you're in a wheelchair, you're disabled. And so going through that experience was humbling and taught me to have compassion. Um, I know I wouldn't be doing probably the healing work I do if I hadn't been through all of that, overcoming the pain of my body. And I still have, those things to deal with. But then I remember I'm not my body. I am as God created me, as a divine being, and that I can choose heaven on earth, and that I don't have to give in to whatever that is. But it's a struggle. It was a struggle, and yet that higher part would kick in and remind me, and then I would, kind of rise above it.
Yeah. The duality of our existence is challenging in general. Some people tend to be very connected to the physical, other people tend to be very connected to the spiritual. Some people have learned to integrate those things. What, and this is something I'm always working on, is trying to integrate that physical with the spiritual. What what advice or tips or would you offer people who are in this space of, like, they've had this spiritual experience, their eyes have been opened, and now it's like, okay, the mundane of life feels meaningless,
Mm-hmm.
and they're wanting to be in the spiritual, but they don't, in the spirit more often than in the physical. What are some what's some advice or tips that you have for people who are in that space of trying to integrate? It's really interesting that we're having this conversation, because I do a lot of journaling, like intuitive journaling, channeled journaling, and
Right.
that has been something that has come up in my um,
Mm-hmm.
in the messages that I've received this week too. So I'm curious what your insights are on that.
Yeah, I love that question. I really think self expression is vital. Um, at times, I will say I was depressed. I was trying to conceive uh, after the accident and later in life, and I was not able to do that. And I had two miscarriages, and I went through a lot of losses.
Wow.
And I think depression is where we're pressing down on ourselves with our thoughts of grief or loss, and maybe shame or blame. Like I was blaming my body for not let doing what I thought it should do. Um, and I think all feelings are valid. So, but I maybe stayed in those a long time. So coming out of those feelings through creating, like you said, journaling, writing was really important and is important to me. I write a lot of poetry. Spending time in nature, being able to go out every day. My husband and I, we garden. We have created heaven on earth in our home with plants and flowers and food, and being able to experience joy uh, in the solitude. I have to have my quiet time with spirit to connect. I can easily do that in nature. I have a creek in my backyard, and I'll go out there and pick some asparagus and some lettuce and see the flowers and see the birds, and I'm instantly in heaven. Um, and if I stay in the house and do certain things, I can't, for me, I can't watch the news or negative programming, because I have to keep my vibration high. Um, there was something, my father passed when I was talking about the losses and the miscarriages. During that time, I also lost my father, and he would come to me in dreams so often, and those dreams that are really them visiting you, and you feel that connection to them. Um, but he showed me this vision of being like on a parasail and sailing above the planet or what's going on, and watching and observing it and just floating along and seeing it, but not like being entrenched in it. So, one thing I've been doing a lot lately, And, there's a lot we all know going on in the world right now that can have us in fear and complete uh, worry. Is I will start the day with a meditation, and I put myself in a green parasail. Here's my green parasail.
We're matching today.
Yeah, we
We
are.
got the memo that we didn't even know was written.
The angelic memo.
That's right.
From spirit. Yeah. So I'll put myself on the screen parasail, and then I see the top of it is filled with love, and it just goes down onto the planet. I send that love to the world leaders, to our president, to all the folks that are in the House and the Senate. And I just send that love all around, and to really try to keep myself in a higher place. And like I said, nature can do that. Good food helps me with that. Art and poetry, dance, being good music. Sometimes I just put really good music on and just dance it out. It's like, but truly finding the joy and connecting to that. And in my work, that's what I always say, I work from the inside out. I remember a lady coming to see me who was depressed. And I said, "What do you love to do?" And she said, "Well, I used to teach French." And I said, "Well, teach me French." So I find that that's really a great way to come out of those feelings, is to serve another and to create with the creator something, even
Yeah.
if it's a doodle. So I've been doing this neurographic art. Have you ever heard of that?
I have, yes.
Okay, so I've been doing a lot of that. My sister kind of helped me with getting connected to it, and it was a psychologist that came up with it, but it helps to bring the subconscious to the conscious mind, and you're literally doing like a doodle, um, and kind of letting go of the thing that's bothering you. And there is a process to it. Like if any edge is not rounded, you go back and you round it. But it ends up looking a little bit like the brain, the neurons in the brain. But I remember I was having this knee pain and it wasn't going away. And I started doing the neurographic art around it. And I've got a couple of these here. So the first one that came out was, so it was doodles, but then I saw a woman's face.
Oh, wow.
Um, and in a dream, she said her name was Victoria. So I wrote on the back, "Angel of Victory, moving forward victoriously." So what came to me in a meditation was there was areas in my life I needed to move forward on, and I wasn't. And so therefore the knee pain. And so anyway, she showed up,
That's awesome.
and then I did a couple more. This one I actually closed my eyes and did. And there she was again.
Wow.
Um, and this one that I wrote down, "Morning rain, headache," closed eyes and drew this. So this one was in June. This one was in July. And then I think I had three different ones where she showed up. There she is again.
Oh, okay.
You kind of see her here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this one, she's kind of over the whole world. You kind of see her
Uh,
over here. And there's the world, and there's the chaos, but um, can also see the love, but the love's upside down.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so anyway, it was just a doodle, but then
Yeah, and
eventually,
for those who are listening rather than seeing the video, what she's showing is this artwork that comes out of this free form expression called neurographic art,
mhm,
and she's showing these depictions of um, a woman that showed up in the
yeah.
drawings more than once. So, and colorful, you added a lot of beautiful color to it as well.
Yeah, and eventually the knee pain went away. I wrote about it, drew it out, and moved forward where I needed to move forward, and the knee pain went away. So being able to co-create daily is important to me. It might be a poem, it might be cooking a beautiful meal, for myself.
Yeah, I find chopping vegetables to be very meditative.
Me too. I love that. And I love the colors. It's like it'll be green and orange, and I'll think there needs to be red in there, like a painting.
Mm,
And really, I love being able to go outside and pick some kale or a pepper or whatever and just throw it in there.
yeah,
And that, I think, keeps our vibration high as well. You know,
yeah.
those, yeah.
Any other you've kind of mentioned the way you changed and the way you changed what you're doing in the world and your feelings about the world and what you were doing before versus after and so forth. Were there any other after effects that surprised you from this near-death experience?
Well, eventually I've developed claustrophobia from being trapped. And I
Mm,
thought, okay, how can I know that we're infinite spirit? How can I know that we're not our bodies? How can I have experienced coming out of my body and know I'm not it? And yet now I'm feeling claustrophobic in small spaces. I wasn't that way immediately. It was later in life. So that was 27. Now I'm in my 50s. And now it was kind of slowly creeping in on me. Um, and actually that's when a friend of mine had stage fright, and he had gone to New York to meet with some doctors to get rid of that. And he came back and he said, I was able to eliminate my stage fright with this thing called havening, which means to put in a safe haven, safe place. um, and he said, I may bring the doctors here, would you be interested in training in it? And I said, if it could help me with my claustrophobia, yeah, I would. So I did some sessions with him because he had trained with them. I was able to alleviate that. Um, One of the things he had said to me was, I think you had to go through this again to remember that you chose to come back.
mhm,
And it's like there was part of this still stuck in your body, and you needed to remember because you were starting to forget.
mm.
So I have this great t-shirt. It says, remember, forget. And it's like, how can we know these things, right? You can have these epiphanies and you're like, I know the answer. And then in our humanness, we forget, right? And then something wakes us back up, and then I'm an infinite being. I'm not my body. I'm free. Um, I am as God created me, this infinite love and light, but I can forget that at times. And so having to go through that, having moments where um, I question it, and then I remember,
Mm.
because I'm still in this human body with an ego, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I have this, more frequently than I would like to admit. I have experiences where, the spirit aspect can feel really overwhelming and can
Mm.
feel like a lot living in this physical plane and then feeling this spirit presence and the experiences with all that can start to feel like a lot. And then uh, I will tend to go more into the physical experience, and that's where I start to feel, like you said, depressed, right? Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
not being my fully integrating my who I am, authentic
Mm-hmm.
self, and then I reconnect and I feel that uplift again. So it's just an interesting little roller coaster. It speaks to what you're talking about. Remember, forget, and
Yeah.
trying to find that balance where we're
Yeah,
here, we're present in the present, and yet
that's
also
it.
very aware of the spirit realm that we
Mm.
exist in at the same time. Yeah.
Very well said, Julie. And I think that's why I loved the training in the heart math so much, was being able to breathe in and out through the heart, go into gratitude. Anytime I get overwhelmed, and I'll start with the most simple thing. Let's say I don't want to make dinner, I'll say, okay, I'm grateful that my body works. I'm grateful that I can stand right here in this home and, like you said, chop up these vegetables. I'm so grateful that I have a kitchen, and just I'll go to all the little minute pieces. We were having Christmas here at our home, and our main water line broke in our front yard. So we had no water, and it was like 3 degrees here in Kentucky, which is unusual.
Right.
So here I am. I'm going to have Christmas dinner, and my mother-in-law is staying with me. She doesn't normally do that, but she was here, and she had pneumonia and was recovering. And so there was a lot going on. And I remember kind of my husband would turn the water on once a day, and we would get buckets and pans, and he would say, okay, this is your chance. If you're going to shower or do anything, he'd turn the water on, and then he'd turn it back off. So I remember thinking, okay, I'm gonna have still gonna have Christmas dinner. And I had to constantly go into gratitude, like, okay, there's people in other countries who would give anything to live in a house like mine and even have this much water, because I had buckets of water and pans of water. And I I will have a beautiful Christmas in spite of the fact that this is going on. And this was a couple years ago, but just constantly being grateful, even though these things were going on. I This was, yeah, like I said, a couple years ago. I never forgot that Christmas. It meant so much because it was like camping out, and we ended up having a great meal. And it was just boil the pot of water, do the dishes in it. It was, but I never forgot it, because it was, they say through the most challenging experiences is when we learn the most.
Yeah.
And someone said to me, if I'd have gone to church that day and then died and came back, I wouldn't have gone back there. I said, well, it was so perfect, because it was teaching me about healing and teaching me spiritually that I was bigger than who I am. And so I met all the right people to help me. It was putting me on my path. But if we can see it's all for us and working for us, and not be a victim to it, but it's not happening to me, it's happening for me to awaken me. I know I chose it, and I have to keep remembering that. And sometimes, it's like, well, why would any of us choose the way it's going now, or why would we choose these circumstances? But it's so that we can learn the lessons we're learning, and to be a happy learner, and to see that we didn't do anything wrong. We just chose to learn it this way.
Mm.
And, I do believe we are spiritually evolving to higher realms right now. And it is very important. I tell myself every day, your job is to stay in love. Your job is to lift up the planet. Now, that may not be everybody's job. Some people are called to do other things. But when I get quiet and go to my heart, I know what I'm called to do, and I have to do those things. Um, and it's not my job to say, well, Julie, you should be doing exactly what I'm doing, because your path is different than mine, and I can't know anybody's path. And that's another thing that really helps me, is to say people awaken when they awaken. They're on their path, and they have every right to be on that path, whatever that looks like. Then I bless them, I pray for them, but it's not my job to take them off their path and put them on mine.
Mm.
But I've done it before. I've sure tried.
Well, it's a beautiful space of acceptance when you can do that, when you can just recognize that we're all on this planet experimenting. We all came with a different life plan, a different soul plan,
Mm-hmm.
and who am I to say what your soul plan is versus mine? And it's a beautiful way to live. It just feels so much more peaceful, and it's so much easier to access love from that space. So I love that. That's a really important concept, I think, when we start to recognize that, because we're so busy looking at what's around us that doesn't resonate with us and saying they're wrong. Like that's a big part of our culture, is to point out where everybody is wrong and where we're right. But what we're really pointing out is I'm on this path and you're on that path.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think of it too, like it's just like we went to different schools. And what if I went to the University of Louisville and you went to, UCLA? Does that mean you're wrong because you chose a different school than me? So I just see it like people are in different schools and your school's a different school than mine, but hey, that's cool. We don't fight because you went to a different school than me.
Yeah, when you said that, it reminded me of a session I had with someone this week, where I was shown this image of them traveling from where they live to, I think they said New Jersey, and somebody else was traveling to Florida, and it was just like, yeah, you may travel together for a short distance, but eventually, because they lived in the Midwest, eventually your paths are going to separate. It doesn't mean that you're right and they're wrong. It just means you have different destinations that you're headed towards. So
Yeah.
it's really a fascinating thing to consider. And before we hit record, we talked about how things have changed so much in in our own lives. I'm a little older than you, but I can remember a time when yoga was really strange and meditation was seen as just
Mm-hmm.
something that fringe people do, and now it's just part of the norm of
Yeah.
life. And I think that speaks to what you're talking about, the evolution
Mm-hmm.
of our world.
Yes, and I do think we are evolving spiritually. There's so many podcasts now, like Next Level Soul, that has more subscribers than Netflix, which is a spiritual podcast. So I think people are seeking hope and answers and solutions, um, and finding ways to connect to spirit and to see that there is another way, that we are all one and that we can unite. I believe ultimately that's where we're going, and I have hope for that. And on that note, I had some people who came in who told me they didn't feel so hopeful. And we had the cicadas here. Have you all had the cicadas?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, that night I wrote a poem on hope, and I'll see if I can find it, if I can share it. Oh, this is a different one. Well, I'll share this one for now and then maybe the other one. This one's called Illusions Fall, and I wrote this during COVID. So this was March of 20. Illusions Fall. Still it down, settle in. I feel the spin. Then I still hear birds sing early in black sky. Pain is present. Breathe in the calm presence. A kaleidoscope of memories play. Choose the best ones. Breathe them into your heart. Grace falls in. No more spin. Greater still is present. A diamond in my heart shines out to reach the whole galaxy. Stars say, remember me? Yes, I recall our connection. Can you take this pain, I ask? Turn it into stardust and rain? Deeper in the still, I am it all. The more I recall, I am in all. The illusions fall, and only love remains.
Mm, beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah. Want to listen to that on repeat to get all the messages within that. That was really, really significant. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. And
Yeah.
I have one on hope that I wanted to share because a lot of people had told me they had felt they didn't have some hope right now. It's on my computer, but let's see. If I don't find it, I'm not supposed to share it. So,
If it's on your computer, you can look at it. It won't mess up our recording.
oh, okay. Well, then I'll just flip over.
There you go.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay, Hope, where did you go? We're digging down deep into the black earth looking for you everywhere. We found the cicadas and we ran. We're searching up in the sky, way up high with the hawks and the stars. We saw a twinkle, but we gave up. We swam deep in the dark waters and almost drowned. We went down to the bottom of the sea and you were nowhere to be. We finally gave up and we just went to bed. We slept too long. Then we dreamed a vision that you were deep inside us, not hiding, just residing in our hearts all along. We rejoiced, we sang a song, and we played along until all the sadness put us back to bed again. We cried so much it rained. We tried so hard not to be drained and depressed. We even got dressed and we went out searching in the books and the talks and all the devices, all the fixes. They left us broken again. We surrendered our exhaustion, laid down, prayed into the night to be able to just lie down with this fear, to lay it down. In the silence, we felt you near. Love called. I'm right here.
Mm, I love that. Yeah, um I developed a hope model of healing. Hope has been a central piece of the work that I do. So that has particular meaning for me. So thank you so much because I really truly do believe hope resides in our heart and it was planted there before we came.
Yes, exactly.
It's part of our
And
divine blueprint, if you will.
yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's there. Um, and at moments we do forget, and going back to the heart brings us that connection. And I will say sometimes, just like me reading that, and bringing tears to my eyes, I think what sometimes when we go to our heart, there is grief and sadness there. And we can breathe that out and breathe in the gratitude
Mhm.
for just the simplest things. Um, and I want to say all feelings are valid. I don't want to say we shouldn't feel those because I think it's important to feel what you feel. But then we have to be in the world and be effective. So I find gratitude does reconnect me back to heaven on earth and bring me back to all the blessings that I do have and bring me to the present moment to choose, well, how do I want to be? To choose joy and to choose hope and to choose to live a miraculous life. And, I spend a lot of time studying the Course of Miracles. And, it says that a miracle is just a shift in perspective, from fear to love. So that helps me that I can just shift over and choose that and to see all the miracles that are unfolding every day in my life when I become present.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the Course in Miracles as well. It's
Mhm.
a beautiful text with a lot of meaning. Um,
Yeah.
well, so one of the things that I like to ask all my guests is what are some of the, and you've touched on several, but I just want to give you an opportunity to answer this question as well, is what are some of the daily or weekly practices, spiritual practices that help you stay connected?
Yeah, I love that question. I laugh about it because it gets to be longer and longer getting out of the door every
Yeah.
day.
I know the feeling. It's like I have this menu and I'm like, okay, which ones do I have time for today?
Yeah, exactly. So, of course, getting quiet and meditating, doing some heart breathing. Um, I do inspirational readings in the morning. I do get a course card every morning. I do a workbook lesson from the Course in Miracles. Um, I have an exercise routine that my husband and I do together. It's kind of a combination of yoga and some PT things that, we've learned. So we do about a half hour of that. Um, every day I have to get in nature. So I get outside and do some grounding or just, it's easy for me to do because of the way my yard is. So I can just walk out there and um, it's like a park. So being in nature. I do love to read inspirational books, things. I feel like it's my job to keep my vibration high, so I'm always looking for what is going to lift me up. I love to cook and make healthy food for people. Last weekend, I was teaching a Reiki class, and I really just wanted everyone to have healthy food. So I bring that up to say doing energy work on myself to keep my energy where it needs to be able to do the work I do as a coach and a healer. That I know I have to do all my work first to lead by example. So there are a lot of things I do each day. And I say being well is a full time job because everything I'm telling you to do, I'm doing it myself. And I am human, so I do have vices and I do veer. Like this is my birth month. And so I will have some things I don't normally have this month. Uh, so I will, have some celebratory things that I call making an exception. I don't have them all the time, but I will have some.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know listening to your story and the work that you do, the beautiful work that you do, I know there's people that are listening that are like, well, how do we get connected with Kimberly? So share where people can find you.
Sure. My website is inspirewellness.net. And on there list all the socials. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook under Inspire Wellness. And I named my business Inspire Wellness because it's to breathe life into in spirit. And that is really what I wanted to do. Really, that was what my heart was calling me to do. And if we have time, I just wanted to share a little sentence or two from this awakening stories from my chapter called The Wake Up Call.
Yes.
And it says, I proudly share my NDE, near death experience, and what I learned from it that we are all infinite spirit, that you are love, and only love remains. Listen to your inner voice and be your authentic self. You are unique, and all you need to do is be you. You really can't mess it up. These are all the lessons you came to learn. Relax into and surrender to the flow of life and the divine creator. We are all connected. For me, going inward was my way out, listening to my inner voice, trusting it, and making time to be still and practice gratitude. Peace is just a breath away. I now live the life of my dreams. I love what I do, and I do what I love. And then I had two quotes under that. One is from Ray Bradbury that says, love what you do what you love. Don't listen to anyone else who tells you you cannot do it. You do what you want and what you love. Imagination should be the center of your life. So imagining what you want and actually bringing it into reality. And the last quote is, find the place inside you where nothing is impossible. And that was from Deepak Chopra.
Mhm.
So it seemed impossible to me to leave the corporate world and do this, what I'm doing, because, I had the salary and the 401k and all of that. And I want people to know that ultimately, when I got to my dream job, I made a salary greater than what I was making in the corporate world.
Wow.
And I really didn't think that was possible. But I had to take that leap of faith to jump out there and do what I was called to do. And I said I didn't want to get up to the, higher realms and say, well, I sold a lot of fast food. Is that okay? At the time I was in the pizza business. And I just knew that wasn't going to be okay, that I was called to do something much bigger, and that I couldn't, and I'd say I was selling my soul every day for this certain amount of money. And I just felt like I was selling out. And I thought, I have to answer this call. And I have never regretted doing that. Because I know for a fact that I'm living my life on purpose and doing exactly what I came to do. And it's very rewarding work. So I don't regret it for one moment.
I love that so much. It's really interesting because my wake up call was a car accident as well.
Wow.
And it was a rollover car accident. And
Mm,
after that accident, I often would think there's a reason why I'm still here. There's a reason why I'm still
mm,
here. And
wow.
that, brought me to the place where I am now, where
Mm,
I'm doing very different work than I
mhm,
was at the time. It's not that it didn't all go together, like you see the kind of the divine um,
mhm,
coordination of everything. So
mhm.
I really appreciate your story. I really appreciate you sharing it with us today and sharing your experiences, your beliefs, your transformation. It's very inspiring. Thank you.
That was an honor and a privilege. And I think we're soul sisters. We're all connected, and we have very similar stories. And I don't believe it was an accident that we came together in Kentucky. You from Nashville at that event, and I believe all that's divinely orchestrated to be able to say a few words to give people hope and inspiration right now, and that this was the divine time to do it.
Excellent. Well, thank you
And
again for being here, Kimberly.
thank you, Julie. It was an honor.